The baby's smiling, lady is smiling, everyone's having a good time, the baby's being let go, okay? The purpose of this presentation is if you feel like you are being a railroader, or you've received the feedback that you are a railroader, the first step is to say, okay, on the micro level, am I letting players try things that I haven't thought about? Okay, am I letting them try things that I haven't thought about? And so your first instinct should be to say, yes, you can try doing this, and then when they roll well, let them do it. Okay, this is what I call micro railroading scenarios, but the focus of the presentation is actually on the macro of railroading. How to let your players' choices have a meaningful long-term impact on the story of the campaign. Okay, so we've talked about micro railroading, in the moment, allowing your players to make choices like escaping the guards and whatever. But what about railroading on a larger scale? Now, this is less applicable if you are running a one-shot, for example, but ultimately, in any scenario that you are running Dungeons & Dragons, you can apply the principles that I'm going to talk about, okay? I think that this micro railroading that we talked about is more intuitive, if you're not letting them roll stuff, or you're not letting their rolls matter, you just easy fix. But how do you let your players affect the campaign on a larger scale? That's what I'm going to be talking about in this presentation, okay? So over the course of this presentation, I'm gonna take you through the DM's journey when it comes to developing a situation that may lead to railroading, and how you can bake in agency for the player. So we're going to start off with the inspiration that DMs have. I've had it. I'm sure DMs all over the place have had their inspirational moment where they have an idea, then they take that idea, they develop a villain based off of it, and then if you are interested in serious storytelling, you lead your players there. You give them a trail of breadcrumbs, and then I'm going to talk about a very important idea called letting your baby float gently down the river. Okay, and once you've let your baby float gently down the river, how do you look to the future? All right, so that's what I'm going to be talking about in this presentation here. So let's start first with the inspirational moment, okay? You've read something in an adventure or in a book. You've seen something in a TV show. You heard somebody else talking about it, and you think to yourself, wow, this would be a cool idea for an encounter or a villain. Maybe you, like me, have very vivid dreams where D&D adventure ideas come to you, and now you're super motivated about this. You're excited to write this adventure or to make this bad guy or this encounter. This is great. You're on a good path right now, and you should use this momentum to move forward. Life is good, okay? The next step is you develop your villain/scenario on a more mechanical basis. So you have this idea. Let's say you have a villain who you want them to control dragons, okay? You think that's really cool. And so you start making stat blocks for your villain. You start making stat blocks for the harness, the magic harness that allows them to control the dragons. Stat blocks out the wazoo. You're thinking to yourself, oh, this is going to be so awesome. We're still in the path of great. Keep going. This is all good stuff, assuming that you are reasonable at game balance. If you have an absolutely whack sense of game balance, then that's sort of outside the scope of this presentation. But assuming you know what you're doing when it comes to homebrew stuff, you're in a good place. If you would like some feedback, if you'd like to improve your homebrewing skills, I'm happy to provide such feedback if you guys want to talk to me. But there are people all across the internet, all across the world, who are going to be able to give you feedback on your homebrew items or villains or stat blocks or monsters or whatever. The best resource, however, is your players. So maybe after you run the adventure, after you run the scenario, get feedback from your players. Did they like this? But so far in the creative process, we are in a good place. Okay, and now we get to leading your players to the promised land. So you have this cool villain idea, this person who controls dragons, okay? But it's poor narrative form to just dump a big bad evil guy who controls dragons on them without, any lead up to it, especially if this bad guy is way more powerful than them. So, in order to add some narrative credibility, in order to prepare the players for what they're up against, you start adding little tidbits along the way. So, for example, they start to hear rumors that dragon eggs have been stolen. They meet this tinkerer who maybe his memory has been wiped, and they fix this memory wipe, and he realizes that he's made this harness for somebody and he doesn't know what it's for, but it's able to control people. So now you're starting to paint the picture slowly, bit by bit, that this threat exists. And if the players decide to pursue that threat, then that will lead them in that direction. And if they pursue it too aggressively, they pursue it without preparation, then that possibility of failure comes from their choices to tangle with something that they have hints at of how powerful it is, but they don't do enough research or whatever. So far, they're making the choices, right? But, and this is important, your players will not necessarily do what you expect them to do. You expect them to maybe go into this person's hideout after assembling a bunch of magic items and then fighting them. But what if this person thinks, no, instead, I'm going to try and anticipate what this villain's next move is, whatever their next stage in their plan is, I'm going to try and cut them off there. Before they can even start controlling the dragons, I'm going to try and defeat them. And this is what brings us to the most important part of this presentation, which is letting your baby float away, okay? Your players know what's up. They have a plan now, doesn't necessarily conform to what you've expected, and you need to allow them the possibility of success. You need to let go of this cinematic, cool idea you have of this battle in the lair with the dragons and the harnesses and whatever. You need to accept the fact that that may not happen based on your players' choices. And that is okay, alright? The baby's smiling, lady is smiling, everyone's having a good time, the baby's being let go, okay? Alright? Your players will have a plan, may not line up with what you want. It may be a good plan, may be a bad plan. The dice rolls may go with it, may not go with it, but you need to be ready to let your players win in a way that you weren't expecting, okay? But you might be thinking to yourself, I love my baby, okay? I don't want to let my baby float down this river, okay? There are crocodiles in the river or whatever, In other words, this idea that I had, this cinematic scene is so cool, if I let my players win earlier, it won't feel as satisfying. It won't be as cool as this battle idea that I have in my head, which is super cool. And to that I would say, yes, maybe crocodiles will eat your baby, but maybe your child is Moses, okay, and will come back splitting Red Seas and whatever, alright? In other words, the players might have more fun following their own plan. They will definitely have more fun following their own choices and doing what they want to do rather than you forcing them into the cinematic battle that they don't want to do or that they are trying to avoid in the first place. What comes out of this might be better for your players and for the story and the narrative than what you had envisioned, and that is okay. You will not know until you try, and you will definitely provide a better experience for your players if you let them control their actions and adjust the outcomes accordingly, okay? Now, once you've let go of your baby and you're thinking, oh my goodness, I had this wonderful idea about this amazing, conflict in a cave with dragons, and now that conflict's just going away, it's never gonna happen, that's such a waste. Reduce, reuse, recycle. Everyone thinks their baby is unique, okay? Everyone thinks their baby is beautiful. And I'm sure that your idea was awesome, okay? You had lots of creativity and lots of energy that went into this. You can adapt. Maybe your baddie isn't as unique as you thought they were. Maybe this baddie is part of an organization that's looking to control dragons. Maybe this baddie has inspired others. They have a bunch of minions who weren't present for whatever ambush the players had for the baddie, and now they want to carry on their work. Or there is some way to take your idea and to take the impact that your players have had and spin this into a new threat. The players have all the satisfaction of defeating the big bad that you put in front of them that they were aware of, okay? They have all that satisfaction from you letting their actions and outcomes affect the world. And you can still take those ideas that you have and spin them into something new, something equally nefarious that could lead to something unexpected and cinematic and beautiful in the future, okay? So this is the crux, all right? This is how you remain satisfied. You need to be invested in your players' enjoyment. You need to be invested in the world itself, and not just the one cinematic moment that you thought was cool. You need to be invested in the world, and in villainous opportunities and outcomes, and letting your players do cool things, and still finding ways to challenge them in the future, okay? So your baby, let's face it, everyone thinks their baby is unique, but it's not. And it can turn into something different, and that's still okay. All right? So, in summary, all right, the inspiration that you have, the motivation that you have at the beginning is good. It is a good thing. You should lean into it, and you should let that drive your creativity. It will produce something beautiful. That is for sure, okay? Then using this information, using this beautiful idea, lead your players on a learning journey where they uncover this beautiful idea piece by piece, okay? So, little hints that this guy's controlling dragons, this person's doing that, there's a harness here, there's whatever. And then you need to let go of the specifics, okay? You need to let your players come up with their own plans, approach the problem in their own way, and let them do that. Adjust the encounters accordingly, okay? If your players say, you know what, I don't want to let this person continue spreading this negative influence until it gets us to a certain point, I want to try and bait them out, okay? I want to try and bait them out, and I want to set a trap for them. If it's a good trap, they sell it well, let it happen. They put out this beautiful, tantalizing dragon egg, okay, that this person may want to collect to add to their dragon collection, and then boom, they strike when this person's trying to get this egg. That's great thinking on your players' part. Let that happen, okay? Let that happen. This isn't the end for your beautiful vision. Your beautiful vision can grow. It can recycle, all right? You take this lovely thing and you compost it, all right? You let your players murder your plan. That's okay, all right? Death is a part of life. Let your players murder your plan, put it into the ground, and use that as fertilizer for a whole forest of horrible, terrible things that will come to haunt your players in the future, as long as you let them, know what's coming up. You, again, go back to that learning journey, you lead them along the way, and so on and so forth, in this beautiful back and forth between player, group, and DM, between characters and villain after villain and world. You lead them on this beautiful journey, okay? So thank you guys for listening.